Hey there, everyone, and welcome back to Utility Sports. Today, we are covering something that was requested in the comments below, actually, and that is guard Sharife Cooper from Auburn. He has played 6 collegiate games so far, was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, and many believe he is rising up draft boards. He's a guy to watch. Obviously, did not get to start the season with Auburn, had some off-the-court stuff going on, but taking a look at him, that is what we're going to be talking about today, kind of breaking down what I've seen so far, how I feel about his draft stock in the NBA, and possibly what he could end up being as an NBA player moving forward. So if this is something you guys are interested, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're going to have a lot more NBA prospect content, also have some NFL prospect content coming out as well. So this is the spot to be. Also, don't forget to smash that like button if you guys enjoy the video. So now let's take a look at Sharife Cooper here. He's a 6'1" freshman, 180 pounds. And to me, I think that those are actually probably lenient stats for him. They're lenient measurements. I don't think that he's actually 6'1". He's probably closer to about 6 foot, maybe 5'11" and a half or so. And he's probably about 170, 175 pounds. I think that the Auburn Tigers gave him a little bit of a bump in both of these areas as well when it came to his height and weight, but that's okay. The biggest thing with him is what we've seen on the floor so far. He's played fairly well for Auburn. He has 22 points a game so far in 32 minutes a night in his 6 games played for Auburn. He's also averaging 9 assists, about 5 rebounds. So it shows he works hard, gets to the glass, which is something I like to see for a smaller guard like him. And smaller guards can have success in the NBA. We've seen that with Kyle Lowry. Obviously, Steph Curry's not a big giant at the point guard position. He's pretty lightweight, obviously 6'3", but still not a big point guard. I think that Sharife Cooper could find success in the NBA in spite of his height. But I think that there's some other questions that would possibly limit what he could be in the NBA, and we've seen those at Auburn already. He's only shooting 40% from the field. He takes tough shots. Yes, sometimes he makes tough shots, but I think that he sometimes settles for his own shot, doesn't really get the best shot for his team, and I think he likes to put the ball up at the rim a lot, which is a good quality to have when you're a good scorer like he is. However, he's just not shooting very well. In fact, he's shooting 18.5% from 3. That is an abysmal number. That number has to come up. Now, it could be a little bit of a bad stretch for him. I think he's a better shooter than that. His mechanics look fairly all right, although he does have a slight outward bend on his elbow that I think limits some of his backspin that he can get on that ball. But it does have a high release point, which is good for his size. And I think that that percentage will climb a little bit. Right now, Luka Doncic is shooting 28% from 3 in the NBA. I don't think that Luka Doncic is a 28% shooter, and he's at a bigger sample size than Sharife Cooper's had so far at this point at Auburn. I don't want to jump too much in on that. I think he is a better shooter, but I think that will be a question mark for GMs if that number doesn't rise up to at least high 20s. And even at the high 20s, that's not a good percentage. Right now, it's looking really, really scary for him if he doesn't get that percentage up. I'm going to be fully honest with you guys there in that percentage is going to scare GMs off of him and other executives, owners as well, because you're looking at a multi-million-dollar investment when you draft a player in a lottery selection. And I don't know if Sharife Cooper is going to get there. Not playing at the start of the year hurt him. He has momentum going right now. He's averaging 9 assists a game. That's the strength of his game, in my opinion. He is a phenomenal ball handler, and he's a guy who really reads the floor well. He can read the opposite weak side corner. He can read strong side corner. He's an excellent lob passer, puts the ball on time, on target. He manipulates the pick and roll very well, both as a ball handler and as a passer. He has good vision. Sometimes he's a little late on his reads. I think that's something he's going to have to improve. He is averaging 4 turnovers a game right now, but I'm not going to read too much into that as well. He has over a 36% usage rate. That's something very similar to what James Harden's was for the Houston Rockets for the past few years. That is an extremely high usage rate, and that leads to turnovers. Trae Young had over 4 turnovers a game when he played for Oklahoma. Sharife Cooper similarly doesn't have a ton around him. JT Thor is a pretty solid player. Outside of that, I don't think that this Auburn team is really, loaded with talent, and I think that there's a lot of pressure on him to get the job done for Auburn. The team is definitely better when he is playing. There's no question to that. I think that they need to figure out a little bit, though, what to do with Sharife Cooper. I think he stands a little bit too much when he doesn't have the ball. That's part of why his usage rate is so high, is he's a much better player with the ball in his hands than he is without it. That's something, too, in the NBA. I don't know if that really flies for a guy who isn't a surefire top 5 pick. You have to look at fit for some of these guys. I think Sharife Cooper early in his career is probably going to come off the bench, and maybe he'll thrive in that role as the backup point guard. a guy who can maybe function like Lou Williams, Jordan Clarkson, what we're seeing from him this year in Utah, as a guy who comes off the bench early, has the ball, manipulates the offense for the second unit, and maybe he grows into that starting level point guard. But at this point, I don't really see it, to be honest with you guys. I think that there's some questions about his defense and his upside on that end of the floor. Yeah, I think he has quick feet. I think he can stay in front of guys, but I don't really see a lot of upside past that. I think that, especially against bigger guards in the NBA, you'll see a little bit more of that being taken advantage of in favor of Cooper. He's not going to get the best shot contests off. He's small armed, not really a big player like I had mentioned earlier. I think that is a little bit of a negative for him. He's going to have to be a really smart defender. Kyle Lowry's really emerged as that for Toronto. He's always in the right position taking charges. Sharife Cooper's going to have to watch a lot of Kyle Lowry. And Kyle Lowry, remember, he's not even like Sharife Cooper in the fact that he's a little bit of a thicker body. He weighs upwards of 200 pounds. Sharife Cooper right now is very thin, very frail. I think that he has to put on quite a bit of weight. It would definitely help if he grew a little bit more. That's not out of the question. He is just a freshman, but I don't find that extremely likely. We're looking at Cooper probably as a finished product physically in a lot of ways. Obviously could put on muscle. I don't think that is out of the question either. But really his calling card is going to be his skill. He can put the ball in the hoop. He can really get his shot off. That's one thing that also jumps out to me as a guy who can create his own step back. Very good, like I mentioned earlier, in the pick and roll game. Gets to his spots. He's quick, decisive with the ball in his hands, and a quick passer. He's a guy who puts the ball on a rope right into the shooting pocket a lot of times. And like I mentioned, when he's coming downhill, he has the whole peripherals of the baseline. He can read dunker spot to opposite corner, weak side corner, strong side corner. And I think that's going to be his valuable piece in the NBA. I think that's really what transfers the best for Sharife Cooper is as a playmaker and not necessarily as a scorer. I think his size just limits him a little bit. And I don't think he's a good enough shot maker yet at this point to warrant some of the shots he's going to take at the NBA level. I have been a little negative about Cole Anthony too during this draft process. I just see it a little bit harder for these guys who are true shot creators, have the ball in their hands a lot, to really translate as well to the NBA. But I'm not going to rule it out for him. I think he's a guy who's going to be capable of putting the ball in the hoop. I just think it's going to be a little less efficient than a team would want. Right now, if I had to guess where I would see him drafted come draft night, obviously there's a lot of season left. He's only played 6 games. This is very early on and subject to change. But at this point, I do not see him as a lottery pick. I see multiple of the G League Ignite team getting drafted before him. And to be honest, we've seen some other guards in the NCAA right now outplaying him. I think that Jalen Crutcher from Dayton's played very well this year. Not that I think he'll get drafted over him. I don't think he will. He is a senior, and Sharife Cooper is a freshman. But for him to get drafted high, we would have had to see him really, really be electric. And yes, he's electric from a fan standpoint. Fans really love him. He has a whole army of fans. I understand that. He's a 5-star prospect. He had a lot of support coming out of high school. Played with BJ Boston. BJ Boston hasn't looked good either. And I had actually thought he's probably falling out of the lottery. I just don't think Sharife Cooper is going to be a lottery pick yet at this point. However, he is going to be a guy who could rise, especially if we see that three-point percentage jump. The issue is he takes tough shots. I think he's a capable shot maker, but if he settles down his shot selection a little bit, maybe takes cleaner, more open looks, we could see that three-point percentage really jump, and teams would really fall in love with him then at that point. However, right now, I think that there's a lot more prospects that are going to be ahead of him because of what they offer in terms of versatility. Sharife Cooper is going to be just a true guard. He's not going to give you a lot of defensive versatility. He's not going to give you a lot of offensive versatility. Other players in the class like Jonathan Kuminga, Jalen Green, even Cade Cunningham, some of the top guys to mention, they give you a lot of different versatility. They could guard 1 through 3, even maybe 1 through 4 for Kuminga. There's just a lot of different versatility with them. Athletically, they're better than Sharife Cooper. He is athletic, just not as athletic as some of those top guys in my estimation. I think it's going to be interesting to watch for sure because I think he's got a lot of talent, but there's a little bit that has to get unlocked with him yet, especially I think mentally he has to take smarter shots. I think also that Matt Pearl there at Auburn is kind of opening the offense up to him to let him do things because he is the most talented player there. So I understand that there is pressure on him to get the looks himself, to get shots off himself. And it's a little bit of an unfair criticism at this point for me to say that about Sharife Cooper. However, that's what NBA GMs are going to be looking at. NBA executives are going to be measuring this when they put on the film of Sharife Cooper. He just takes tough shots. And I don't know how much a team's going to be willing to roll a top 14 pick on him in the draft. It also depends on how the lottery kind of shakes out. Right now, there's some teams in there that we did not expect to possibly be in there. One of those really being the Dallas Mavericks. They've struggled early on this year. The Houston Rockets are not playing well. There's just some teams that are going to be up there that might shift around. Maybe we see a clear landing spot for him near the back end of the lottery as the season progresses. Because, guards come in premiums. You need to have good guard play in the NBA. He could maybe give that to you, but at this point, I don't see him as a lottery pick. I see him as a back-end first-round selection, a guy who someone's going to take off of potential, maybe even stick him in the G League for part of his rookie season, try and get him to work on that shot selection, try and, maybe adjust that three-point mechanic a little bit, get that elbow out like this to in like this a little bit more. I think that'll help him on his backspin quite a bit there in Auburn. I think he's a very fun player to watch. I understand why he has a lot of fans, but at this point, I don't see him as a lottery pick. That is subject to change, though, as the season goes on. So make sure you guys are subscribed to keep up to date with how I'm feeling about Sharife Cooper and what we kind of look at the NBA draft as a whole. We do have an NBA draft video here for the lottery on our channel. Make sure to click here for that video, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. I hope you really did enjoy the video, and we appreciate you guys so very much.